South Park joining the Panderverse just released on Paramount Plus, and I'm sure it won't be controversial at all, and everyone will be in full agreement about the commentary. This is the 5th special South Park has made for Paramount Plus, and the first time they've delivered a standalone story instead of a two-parter, which I'm all for. The special delves into a lot of topics including multiverse fatigue, diversity and pandering in Disney films, and the future of AI, and all the industries it's set to disrupt. Personally, I thought a lot about the special was very funny, but I definitely think there's going to be a real disconnect between how some people use its commentary and the commentary itself, which is not new for South Park. So let's go ahead and join the Panderverse. So there are 2 major storylines in the South Park special, and honestly, they mostly felt kinda disparate until they loosely tied together in the end. One focuses on Cartman's nightmares of a diverse version of South Park where every character is now a woman of color, which transitions into a full-on multiverse story, where he and his counterpart trade places. The other focuses on Randy realizing that he has no actual real-world skills, and that he and everyone else's jobs are being replaced by AI. Everyone except for handymen, which is an especially funny subplot at the moment, given that South Park itself was recently used by this tech startup that wants to automate TV creation. Granted, the results are ass so far, but obviously tech is only going to improve, so we'll see where it goes. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was partially the inspiration. Also a funny story for me, given that recently my own South Park videos were plagiarized using AI to reword my scripts and software to rework my existing edits. Weird times, folks. This ends up working well as a pretty classic Randy storyline, as he rails against the lazy younger generation while he himself is incapable of doing anything. Using the prospect of all of our jobs becoming automated by AI, they elevate blue-collar workers to elite status, since they're the only jobs that can't be automated. The level of effort Randy puts in to try and get the handyman to fix his door, rather than just learning how to do it himself, is so funny.
Hey Rand, the oven door still isn't shutting right.
Yeah, I'm working on it, Sharon! I'm actually working on it right now!
I also loved that they took a little moment to shit-talk the priorities of billionaires, with the newly successful handymen basically being stand-ins for Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, fighting over their social media acquisitions, attempting to stage UFC fights, arguing about who will get to space first.
I bet I can get to space before you do! God, fuck these guys!
I feel like Matt and Trey really regret letting Elon guest star in the show back in season 20, especially since he's showcased that he's just the most insecure baby about how unfunny he is, though it's not like they were particularly kind to him when he did guest star on the show.
That's because you have a mental block, Elon Musk. They won't let you get over yourself.
But obviously the aspect of this episode that is really rustling everyone's feathers is the Panderverse itself, showcasing an alternate universe where all of the boys are adult women of color. Honestly though, they kinda killed it with these character designs, right? They actually all look great. I love Kenny's design. One of my favorite details in the episode is there's this small background story happening simultaneously in both universes, where Kenny warns Tammy Mullins that Clyde is gonna fart on her.
I'm not in love with her, I just like her knocker.
It's such a tiny plot point, but it's perfectly Kenny, both super horny and also a bit protective. Honestly, I would love if somebody could just please do a Mysterion redesign with the Panderverse version of Kenny. I really need to see that. But a Butters Panderverse counterpart singing Lulu Lou, you got some apples? This is the best.
Lulu, Lulu, I got some apples. Lulu, you got some too.
This Panderverse storyline is obviously where most of the discourse is settled, and is a pretty classic case of people posting out of context clips to make their points. It's just so funny to me how many people are willing to liken themselves to Eric Cartman if it means their views are validated. Eric Cartman. This Eric Cartman. The Eric Cartman who did this, and also this, and ends up like this. This Eric Cartman. That's your guy? That's your surrogate character? Okay. I think the real core of the episode is in this sequence where they differentiate between what they perceive as pandering and something that actually works. Eric being replaced by a black woman in the middle of a story doesn't make sense. It's an exaggerated example of the kind of hollow, diverse representation we get in some of these big 4-quadrant movies, and ones that are trying to appeal to everyone but aren't actually willing to engage with the diversity beyond a surface level, i.e., just making Cartman black. But they also shout out the type of stuff that actually does work.
Probably have a problem with Black Spider-Man too.
No, Miles Morales is sweet. That's a whole constructed thing with its own
character and narrative
And they're right. Miles Morales has his own narrative that actually embraces his identity. There's a reason the Spider-Verse films are so beloved and have even escaped the multiverse fatigue that's commented on in this very special. But people have still continued to complain about Miles just being a diversity token for years, despite his recent popularity. It took a long time for his character to catch on in the mainstream, and even now people are still complaining about the new Spider-Man 2 game being woke and using Miles in their thumbnails for those complaints. And these are the same people who have been and plan to use this special as a rally against what they perceive as woke pandering. And of course, they're all also going to entirely ignore this line from this special.
I guess just wailing on woke stuff all the time is pretty lazy too.
They are flat out calling the people who do nothing but cry about wokeism lazy. And they're right. It's low effort, lazy ass content, siphoning ad revenue with rage bait and capitalizing on a culture war. The dorks over at Geeks and Gamers have already made multiple videos about South Park railing on Kathleen Kennedy, even though the episode is absolutely ripping on them too, and especially anyone who blames literally everything on Kathleen Kennedy.
It's not us, you guys! I knew there was an explanation! Everything is Kathleen Kennedy's fault!
This episode is an actual example of South Park middle-roading their messaging pretty hard, but it's actually baffling to me that people don't see how they're clearly lampooning the anti-woke crowd.
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you!
There are so many people that literally see Kathleen Kennedy this way, like some kind of monster that's coming after them. The level of power people place in her hands is so funny, and it seems like the episode itself is also exaggerating her control over everything. The special basically uses Kathleen Kennedy as a stand-in for all of Disney, probably because she's the primary target of so many of these anti-woke YouTube channels that literally cannot go a single week without complaining about her. But I think one of the most interesting aspects of this commentary is that Kathleen Kennedy barely does any of the things they're claiming. Kennedy is in charge of Lucasfilm. She has absolutely no sway over any Disney projects outside of that umbrella, but the episode shows her making changes on the Bambi movie, having control over the entirety of the Disney movie slate. I do think the Cartman Kennedy variant yelling was executionally very funny.
We were just discussing ideas of what to do with the new Prince Eric movie.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
But I don't think there's even a single Kathleen Kennedy-helmed movie with a gay woman in a meaningful role. Even PC Principal's claims about the new Indiana Jones don't really hold up.
You probably don't like that Indiana Jones got replaced by a female either, huh?
Look, I did not like Dial of Destiny. I actually think it's the worst of all 5 indie films, but Indiana Jones was not replaced by a woman. The film features a woman. She's used as a younger subversion of Indy. It shows what a character might be like if they used Indy's archaeological skills to simply steal and sell ancient artifacts instead of put them in museums. She's not a replacement though. She's a companion, like he has in every other Indiana Jones film. It's actually really funny to think about how people would react if the original Indy films came out today. The first one features a small woman absolutely decimating grown men in drinking contests. Woke agenda, am I right? Remember when that small Asian boy saved Indiana Jones with the power of love? Classic pandering. And again, I'm not defending Dial of Destiny. I don't think it's very good, but it isn't bad because it pandered or because they replaced Indy with a woman. It's actually just directed kinda shittily. I do think the ending is very funny. Cartman literally loves Kathleen Kennedy at the end of the special. He holds hands with her and cries about how much he loves her, made even funnier by the fact that so many people who do nothing but rip on Kennedy are going to use clips of Cartman to push their agenda, but then will ignore the clips that conveniently don't fit that narrative. And all of that isn't to say that I agree with this entire episode. I think it's very funny, but like I said before, it's a super middle road message. I personally disagree with the idea that Kennedy doubled down once she was inundated with hate and vitriol. I think Rise of Skywalker is one of the worst pieces of shit in all of Star Wars. And that movie in particular is basically a cowardly backtrack because of the backlash from The Last Jedi. She hardly doubled down in that situation. She tried to cater specifically to the criticism, and the course correction created a deeply unsatisfying ending. It feels like she was actually pandering directly to the people who whined about this stuff. And again, not a fan of how Kathleen Kennedy has handled Star Wars. They've put out a few things I like and a lot that I do not care for, but I think they maybe added a bit too much credence to the idea that the issues all stem from this type of pandering when there are much bigger story issues at play. I think what she says here is more in line than anything.
I'm sorry I was so reckless with the things that you love.
It was just lazy.
But ultimately, it's just very ironic that this special and terminology it coined is going to become a mainstay of lazy anti-woke commentary when the special itself is literally telling those people that what they do is lazy and lame. Overall, I did have a lot of fun watching Panderverse, even though it was clear the fallout was going to be exhausting, but it is a really funny special, and it's the type of bigger swing I really wanted to see from the Paramount Plus specials. Incorporating these new Panderverse designs for every character makes it feel like a bigger event, like the post-COVID specials, whereas the Streaming Wars felt a little more like a glorified two-parter regular episode of South Park. And I love that they opted for a standalone special here, meaning before the year is up, we'll get another entirely separate narrative. It's cool to see them experimenting with the format as they adjust to this new 6-episode 2-special release model. Really eager to see what we get next. Alright, can't wait to see the comments on this one. I'm sure it will go great. Catch y'all next time. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.